The Rational Optimist, by How Prosperity Evolves by Matt Ridley. Introduction. Hello and welcome. Are you ready to challenge some of the most common beliefs about our world and, perhaps, even about your own potential for growth and prosperity? In this audiobook summary, we're diving deep into Matt Ridley's groundbreaking book, The Rational Optimist, How Prosperity Evolves. We'll journey through a narrative that feels like the epic story of humanity itself, uncovering why, despite the daily barrage of bad news, there's a compelling, evidence-based reason to be profoundly optimistic about our future. Have you ever felt weighed down by the constant headlines of doom and gloom? Do you sometimes wonder if progress is even possible, or if we're all just heading for one crisis after another? If so, you're not alone. Many of us feel this way. But what if I told you that the engine of human progress is not only still running but is actually accelerating? What if the very mechanisms that have lifted humanity from Stone Age struggles to modern comforts are more powerful than ever? In this exploration, we'll unpack the core arguments of the Rational Optimist. We'll discover the surprising power of exchange, the magic of specialization, and how ideas, when they meet and mingle, create an unstoppable force for betterment. You'll learn why human ingenuity has consistently overcome obstacles and how understanding this process can unlock a more hopeful and proactive perspective in your own life. We're not just talking about economic prosperity here. We're talking about a richer, fuller, and more empowered human experience. So who is Matt Ridley, the mind behind this challenging and uplifting perspective? Matt Ridley is a renowned British science writer and journalist with a PhD in zoology from Oxford. He's not just an academic. He's a storyteller who has penned several influential bestsellers like Genome and The Red Queen, books that have a knack for making complex scientific ideas accessible and exciting. Ridley is known for his sharp intellect and his tendency to challenge conventional wisdom, often using a wealth of historical data and evolutionary insights to back his arguments. The Rational Optimist, published in 2010, became a significant work, sparking widespread debate precisely because it offered such a robust and well-argued counter-narrative to the prevailing pessimism of our times. It's a book that invites us to look at human history not as a series of unfortunate events, but as an evolutionary journey of increasing prosperity driven by a very specific human trait. Ready to see the world, and your place in it, through a new lens? Let's begin. The unprecedented present. A world transformed. Imagine for a moment life just 200 years ago. No electricity, no running water for most, basic medicine, and a life expectancy that would shock us today. Now look around. Even with all our current challenges, the vast majority of us live lives of comfort and opportunity that our ancestors could only dream of. This isn't rose-tinted nostalgia for the past, it's a statistical reality. Ridley starts by painting a vivid picture of this unprecedented present. He argues that we are living in a time of unparalleled human achievement. Think about it. Since 1800, while the world population multiplied 6 times, average life expectancy has more than doubled, and real income has risen more than 9 times. Even in the last 50 years, the average human earns nearly 3 times as much, eats a third more calories, and lives a third longer. Diseases that once decimated populations are now treatable or eradicated. Interesting, isn't it? But what about the cost? Surely this progress has come at a terrible price to our planet and our souls. This is where Ridley challenges us. He points out that in many wealthy nations, the air and rivers are cleaner than they were a few decades ago. The Thames River has more fish, and American carbon monoxide emissions from transport are dramatically down. Even inequality, while a complex issue, is declining worldwide when you look at the global picture, as billions in countries like China and India rise out of poverty. So, what's the secret sauce here? Ridley argues that true prosperity isn't just about money, it's about time saved. Think about how long it would have taken someone in 1800 to earn an hour of reading light with a tallow candle over 6 hours of work. Today, for an average wage earner, it's less than half a second of work for an hour of bright, clean electric light. That's a 43,200-fold improvement in the currency that truly counts, your time. This saving of time, this liberation from endless toil for basic necessities, is what allows us to pursue education, art, innovation, and leisure. It's the foundation of a richer life in every sense. But how did we achieve this incredible leap? And how can we ensure it continues? Keep listening, because the answer is both simple and profound. When ideas had sex, the engine of innovation. Now here's a provocative thought from Ridley. What if ideas could have sex? It sounds a bit strange, but this metaphor is central to his argument about how human prosperity evolves. He compares two objects, a 500,000-year-old Stone Age hand axe and a modern computer mouse. Both fit the human hand. But the axe is a single substance, made by one person. The mouse? A complex confection of plastics, metals, and electronics, a product of hundreds, perhaps millions of minds and skills combined. No single person on Earth knows how to make a computer mouse from scratch, from drilling the oil for the plastic to designing the microchip. This, Ridley argues, is the power of the collective brain. It's not just about individual intelligence, it's about what happens between brains. And the process that allows this collective intelligence to grow and create is exchange. Just as sexual reproduction in biology allows beneficial mutations from different individuals to combine and create more complex life forms, the exchange of goods and services allows different ideas and skills to meet, mate, and give birth to innovations. One person invents the wheel, another invents the axle. Separately, they're useful. Together, they can lead to a cart, a chariot, a car. Paper and the printing press, the internet, and the mobile phone. These are all products of ideas having sex. This process of exchange leads to something crucial, specialization. When people can trade, they don't have to be self-sufficient. You don't need to grow your own food, build your own house, and make your own clothes. Instead, you can specialize in what you do best and trade for the rest. This specialization saves time and encourages innovation because specialists get really good at their particular craft. They invest time in better tools and techniques. Prosperity, Ridley states, is simply time saved, which is proportional to this division of labor. Have you ever thought about how many people's specialized labor you rely on every single day without even realizing it? From the farmer who grew your breakfast to the engineer who designed your phone. It's a mind-boggling network of cooperation. This didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, gradual consequence of a very human propensity, the desire to truck, barter, and exchange one thing for another. This, Ridley argues, is the fundamental spark that ignited human progress and set us apart from all other animals. They might use tools, but they don't experience economic growth or technological revolutions. We do, because our ideas can meet and mate. The birth of barter and the collective brain. So, when did this revolutionary habit of exchange begin? Ridley takes us back, way back, to our African ancestors, possibly before 100,000 years ago. He suggests that while other hominids, like the Neanderthals, had big brains and tools, they didn't experience this explosive cultural change because they didn't engage in widespread exchange between unrelated individuals. Their tools remained largely the same for 1,000,000 years. Imagine that. The same technology for 30,000 generations. What changed for our ancestors, Homo sapiens? They started to trade. Perhaps it began with the sexual division of labor, men hunting, women gathering, and then sharing their different hauls. This is a form of specialization and exchange unique to humans among primates. This internal exchange might have paved the way for a more momentous step, exchanging items with individuals outside their immediate family or band. Think about the profound implications. Barter is different from simple reciprocity. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Reciprocity means giving the same thing at different times. Exchange means giving different things, usually at the same time. Give me that which I want, and you shall have this which you want, as Adam Smith put it. This allows access to things you don't know how to make or find. It's a win-win, and the more you do it, the more valuable it becomes, because it allows for even greater specialization. Archaeological clues like nacreous shell beads found hundreds of miles inland from the coast, dating back over 82,000 years in Morocco, hint at these early trade networks. These weren't just ornaments, they were symbols of a new kind of interaction. This is the dawn of the collective brain. But what if a community becomes isolated? Ridley introduces the Tasmanian effect. When Tasmania was cut off from mainland Australia by rising sea levels about 10,000 years ago, its small, isolated population didn't just stagnate technologically, they actually regressed. They lost skills their ancestors had possessed, like making bone tools or fishing. Why? Because a small, disconnected population cannot sustain a complex toolkit of skills. There aren't enough experts to pass on specialized knowledge, and innovations are more likely to be lost than spread. It's a stark reminder: prosperity depends crucially on numbers and connections. Self-sufficiency in this light isn't a virtue, it's a recipe for stagnation, even poverty. Are you starting to see how interconnected we truly are, and how this web of exchange fuels our collective genius? The manufacture of virtue: how markets make us nicer. Now here's a really counterintuitive idea from Ridley. What if markets, often seen as selfish arenas, actually make us nicer? It sounds odd, doesn't it? We're often told that commerce corrupts and that pre-market societies were kinder. Ridley argues the opposite, and he has some fascinating evidence. Consider the ultimatum game, a famous experiment in economics. One player is given money and must offer a share to a second player. If the second player accepts, they both get the money. If they refuse, neither gets anything. Rational self-interest would suggest the first player offer a tiny amount and the second accept it. But in reality, people usually offer close to half, and offers perceived as unfair are often rejected, even if it means getting nothing. This suggests an innate sense of fairness. But here's the kicker. Studies across 15 small-scale tribal societies found that those most integrated into market economies, those who regularly dealt with strangers in commercial exchanges, behaved the most generously and fairly in these games, much like people in Western societies. Societies with the least market experience were more likely to make and accept hard-hearted offers. What does this tell us? As the economist Herb Gintis puts it, societies that use markets extensively develop a culture of cooperation, fairness, and respect for the individual. Dealing with strangers in trade teaches you to be polite, to build trust, and to recognize that your enlightened self-interest lies in cooperation. It's not necessarily about pure altruism, it's about understanding that fair dealing and trustworthiness are good for business and good for everyone involved. This is what Adam Smith hinted at. He recognized our innate sympathy for others, but also understood that for society to function on a large scale, we need more than just benevolence towards our close friends and family. We need to be able to cooperate with strangers. Markets provide the platform for this. They turn strangers into honorary friends, as Paul Seabright termed it. The smile, the handshake, the reputation for fair dealing, these are built on a biological capacity for trust, perhaps amplified by hormones like oxytocin, but they are nurtured and expanded by the practice of exchange. Think about it. The vast majority of your daily interactions, from buying coffee to using software, involve trusting people you've never met. This complex web of trust is the invisible scaffolding that supports our modern lives. And, Ridley argues, it's largely a product of our long history of exchange. The more we trade, the more trust we build. The more trust we build, the more we can trade. It's a virtuous cycle. So, could it be that the very act of engaging in commerce, of specializing and exchanging, has not only made us richer, but also, in a way, more virtuous and cooperative on a grand scale? It's a powerful thought, isn't it? The unstoppable engine, energy and increasing returns. Humanity's journey has been a constant quest for energy. Initially, it was our own muscle power. Then we harnessed animals. Then water and wind. But the real game changer, Ridley argues, was the shift to stored solar power, fossil fuels. This began in earnest around 1700 and accelerated dramatically. Why were fossil fuels so crucial? Because, unlike wood, water, or animal power, they seemed almost limitless in supply relative to demand at the time. Every previous economic boom had eventually hit a Malthusian ceiling because renewable energy sources ran out or became too expensive. Timber became scarce, pastures overgrazed. Coal, and later oil and gas, broke this cycle. They provided an unprecedented amplification of human labor. Think of it this way. Today, the average person on the planet consumes power equivalent to having 150 energy slaves working for them around the clock. For Americans, it's like having 660. These slaves are the engines, the power plants, the furnaces that light our homes, build our cities, and grow our food. Fossil fuels didn't just make slavery uneconomic, they democratized a level of service previously available only to kings. Now this leads to another profound concept: increasing returns. Most things in the physical world are subject to diminishing returns. Your first bicycle is incredibly useful, your 10th, not so much. But the world of ideas is different. The more knowledge you generate, the more you can generate. Sharing an idea doesn't deplete it, it often improves it as others build upon it. As Thomas Jefferson said, He who receives an idea from me receives instruction himself without lessening mine, as he who lights his taper at mine receives light without darkening me. This is the perpetual innovation machine that drives the modern economy. It's not primarily driven by top-down science, government planning, or even patents, though these can play roles. It's driven by the ever-increasing exchange and recombination of ideas. Technologies are like species. They mate and produce offspring. The telephone had sex with the computer and spawned the internet. Almost every technology is a hybrid, a combination of pre-existing ideas. The more people are connected, the more ideas can meet and mate, leading to an accelerating pace of innovation. This is why the modern world, with its global interconnectedness, is experiencing such rapid technological and economic evolution. But doesn't this run out? What about resource depletion? Ridley points out that, historically, we've never run out of a non-renewable resource. The Stone Age didn't end for lack of stones. When whale oil became scarce, we found petroleum. Scarcity drives up prices, which incentivizes the search for alternatives and efficiencies. Human ingenuity, fueled by the exchange of ideas, is constantly finding new recipes for rearranging atoms to meet our needs. The number of possible new ideas and combinations is practically infinite. Are you beginning to feel the power of this optimistic perspective? What if the limits to growth are not fixed but are constantly being pushed back by our collective intelligence? Confronting pessimism, Africa, climate, and the future. Despite this compelling narrative of progress, two giant shadows of pessimism loom large in our current discourse: the fate of Africa and the threat of climate change. Ridley doesn't shy away from these challenges. Africa, he acknowledges, has faced immense hurdles: disease, conflict, corruption, and the lingering effects of colonialism and misguided aid. Many believe the continent is doomed to perpetual poverty. However, Ridley points to Botswana as a remarkable success story. Despite facing many typical African challenges, including being landlocked and diamond-rich, often a curse, Botswana achieved the fastest per capita GDP growth in the world for 3 decades after independence. The key? Good institutions, particularly secure property rights that evolved from indigenous traditions and were, somewhat fortunately, not entirely dismantled by a light-touch colonial rule. What Africa needs, Ridley argues, echoing economists like Hernando de Soto, is not primarily more aid in its current form, which can often be counterproductive, but the unleashing of its own entrepreneurial spirit. This involves formalizing property rights for the trillions of dollars of dead capital currently held by the poor in informal arrangements, and drastically simplifying the bureaucracy that stifles business creation. The explosion of mobile phone use in Africa, enabling farmers to find better prices and facilitating mobile banking, is a testament to this bottom-up potential for transformation. Africa's future, he believes, lies in trade and the continued evolution of its own institutions. Now, what about climate change? Ridley urges a rational look at the probabilities. He points out that all IPCC scenarios for significant warming also assume massive global economic growth, meaning future generations will be far wealthier and thus far more capable of adapting to climate changes. He notes that historically, cooling periods have often been more disastrous for civilizations than warming periods. While acknowledging the reality of warming, he questions the certainty of catastrophic outcomes, emphasizing humanity's capacity for adaptation and innovation in energy technology. He argues that the most effective way to help vulnerable populations is to enable them to become prosperous. A richer world can better afford to develop and deploy low-carbon energy technologies, from next-generation solar and nuclear power to perhaps even ideas we can't yet conceive. The solution to climate change, as with past challenges, will come from innovation and economic dynamism, not necessarily from a forced retreat from growth, which could trap billions in poverty and be environmentally damaging in its own ways, e.g., reliance on land-hungry renewables if other options are blocked. This doesn't mean complacency. It means focusing our efforts on fostering the conditions for innovation and ensuring that the poorest are empowered to participate in and benefit from global prosperity, making them more resilient to any changes the climate might bring. Is it possible that the same forces of exchange and specialization that brought us here can also navigate the challenges of the future? The catalexy, your role in the optimistic future. So, what is the grand takeaway from The Rational Optimist for your own life, for your own growth? Ridley calls the engine of human progress the catalexy. Friedrich Hayek's term for the spontaneous order created by exchange and specialization. It's a bottom-up world where intelligence becomes more collective and innovation bubbles up from the interactions of countless individuals. This isn't just an economic theory, it's a deeply personal one. It means that you are part of this collective brain. Your ideas, your skills, your unique contributions, when exchanged with others, become part of this ever-expanding web of innovation and prosperity. The future, Ridley forecasts, will see an even greater expansion of this catallaxy. Work will become more specialized, leisure more diversified. Large, top-down institutions, whether corporate or governmental, will likely continue to fragment, making way for more agile, networked, and individual-driven forms of collaboration. Think about the rise of the internet, open-source movements, and peer-to-peer sharing. These are all manifestations of this trend. People are finding new ways to connect, share, and create value, often driven by passion and reputation as much as by direct monetary gain. Of course, this journey won't be without its bumps. There will be setbacks, attempts by vested interests to stifle change, and the ever-present human tendencies towards conflict and folly. But the beauty of a networked world is its resilience. If one flame of innovation is dampened, another can flare up elsewhere. The very interconnectedness that some fear is also our greatest strength, allowing ideas to cross-pollinate globally. So, what is the call to action here? It's to dare to be an optimist. Not a blind, Pollyannish optimist, but a rational one, armed with an understanding of the powerful emergent forces that have shaped human progress. It's to recognize that your engagement, your creativity, your willingness to exchange and specialize contribute to this larger human enterprise. Let me ask you a few questions to see if you've grasped the essence of this transformative perspective. Can you recall the core metaphor Ridley uses to explain how innovation occurs through exchange? Hint: it involves ideas behaving like biological entities. What is the Tasmanian effect, and what does it teach us about the importance of interconnectedness for progress? How does engaging in markets and trade potentially foster virtues like trust and cooperation, even among strangers? Why are increasing returns from ideas more powerful for long-term prosperity than the diminishing returns from physical resources? What is one key reason Ridley offers for being optimistic about Africa's future, despite its current challenges? Think about these. Reflect on how this perspective might shift your own approach to challenges, to collaboration, and to your own potential. The Rational Optimist is a powerful reminder that human progress is not an accident. It is an evolutionary process driven by the simple yet profound act of exchange. It's an invitation to participate actively in this ongoing creation of a better future. Don't stop here. If this summary has sparked your curiosity, I wholeheartedly encourage you to read Matt Ridley's The Rational Optimist in its entirety. Continue your journey of growth, armed with a new, evidence-based reason for hope. The future is brighter than you might think, and you have a role to play in making it so.